The silent watchers. The void between stars held secrets that most civilizations never discovered. In the darkness beyond the outer rim of the Kepler system, a sleek vessel drifted silently among the cosmic debris. The ship's hull bore no markings, its surfaces designed to absorb rather than reflect the distant starlight. Inside, Admiral Krexthul of the Vorthon Empire studied the holographic display with growing satisfaction. For 3 standard cycles, his reconnaissance fleet had been monitoring the electromagnetic chatter from the third planet of an unremarkable yellow star. The world's inhabitants called themselves humans, and their transmissions painted a picture of a divided, chaotic species, barely capable of reaching their own moon with crude chemical rockets. Perfect prey for the expanding Vorthon Empire. Admiral. Commander Ilix approached with his usual military precision, his scaled features reflecting the blue glow of the command displays. The intelligence gathering is complete. The humans appear to have no unified government, no advanced weapons, and their space capabilities are limited to primitive orbital stations. Krexthul's mandibles clicked in amusement. The Vorthon Empire had conquered 47 star systems in the past century, each victory adding to their growing dominance. This Earth would be number 48, and perhaps the easiest conquest yet. The humans seemed to spend more time fighting among themselves than developing any meaningful defenses. Their communications suggest internal conflicts over resources, territories, and ideologies. Ilix continued, reading from his datapad. They've never encountered another intelligent species. They have no concept of interstellar warfare or defense protocols. The Admiral's reptilian eyes gleamed with predatory satisfaction. Excellent. Begin preparations for the invasion fleet. We'll establish orbital supremacy within hours of arrival, then demand their surrender. With luck, we won't even need to fire a shot. Light years away, in a hidden facility buried beneath the lunar surface, Captain Zara Blackwood was having a very different conversation. The underground complex, known only as Deep Six to its inhabitants, had been monitoring galactic communications for over 50 years. What the Vorthons didn't know was that humanity had been listening to their plans from the very beginning. The Vorthon fleet is mobilizing, reported Dr. Marcus Chen, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that would have seemed like magic to the surface dwellers above. Our deep space monitoring stations detected their preparation signals 12 hours ago. Estimated arrival time is 62 hours. Zara nodded grimly. She was one of the few people on Earth who knew the truth about humanity's real technological capabilities. While the world above continued its seemingly chaotic existence, a shadow organization had been preparing for this day since first contact protocols were established in 2341. The surface Earth governments maintained their public facade of division and primitive technology, while the real work happened in places like Deep Six. Status of Project Silent Guardian? She asked. All systems are green, Captain. The Terra's Wrath completed its final systems check 6 hours ago. The orbital defense grid is fully powered and hidden behind our cloaking arrays. Surface evacuation. Protocols are ready to implement on your command. The Terra's Wrath was humanity's secret weapon, a massive dreadnought that had been under construction for 20 years in the asteroid fields beyond Mars. Using technology reverse-engineered, from crashed alien vessels and enhanced by human innovation, it represented the pinnacle of human engineering. More importantly, it was completely invisible to Vorthon sensors. What about the deception protocols? Dr. Chen smiled grimly. The surface governments have been briefed. When the Vorthons arrive, they'll see exactly what we want them to see. A panicked, primitive species scrambling to defend themselves with inadequate weapons. The real defensive systems will remain hidden until the optimal moment. Captain Blackwood had spent 15 years preparing for this scenario. She understood that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't superior technology or firepower, but the ability to think strategically, to plan years in advance, and to make their enemies underestimate them. The Vorthons were about to learn a lesson that many Earth generals throughout history could have taught them. The most dangerous enemy is the one you don't see coming. In the depths of space, Admiral Krexthul's invasion fleet was taking shape. 200 warships, each capable of reducing a city to rubble, assembled in perfect formation. The Admiral watched from his flagship's command deck as the final vessels emerged from hyperspace, their weapon systems gleaming under the light of distant stars. "Sir," Commander Wilex reported, "advanced scouts have confirmed the human defensive capabilities. They have approximately 30 orbital platforms of primitive design, maybe 50 atmospheric fighter craft, and their largest warship appears to be a converted cargo vessel. Total estimated firepower is less than 1% of our fleet's capacity." The bridge crew's reptilian features showed clear amusement. One of the junior officers actually hissed with laughter. "They might as well surrender now and save us the trouble," he remarked. Admiral Krexthal was more cautious. "Never underestimate prey, even apparently helpless prey. But you're right, Commander. This will be the shortest conquest in Vorthon history." He turned to address the bridge crew. "All ships prepare for hyperspace jump. We'll emerge directly in their system and demand immediate surrender. If they refuse, we'll demonstrate our firepower on one of their outer planets. Fear will do the rest." What the Admiral didn't know was that every communication, every tactical discussion, every strategic decision was being monitored by hidden human listening posts scattered throughout the sector. Captain Blackwood and her team knew the exact composition of the Vorthon fleet, their battle tactics, their communication frequencies, and even the personal psychological profiles of their commanders. "They're moving," Dr. Chen announced as hyperspace distortions appeared on the deep space sensors. "Admiral Krexthal is personally commanding the fleet. Based on our analysis of his previous campaigns, he'll emerge near the outer planets and make a show of force before demanding surrender." "Perfect," Captain Blackwood replied. "That gives us exactly the opening we need. Signal all hidden assets to maintain radio silence in defensive positions. The surface fleets will perform their roles as planned. Let the Vorthons think they're seeing everything there is to see." The deception had been planned down to the smallest detail. Humanity's visible space assets were deliberately primitive-looking, designed to appear threatening enough to seem like a real defense force, but weak enough to encourage Vorthon overconfidence. The real defenses, including the Terra's Wrath, the orbital defense grid, and the hidden fighter squadrons, would remain completely invisible until the critical moment. On Earth's surface, emergency broadcasts began playing on every communication channel. World leaders appeared on screens across the globe, delivering messages of unity and determination in the face of an alien invasion. To any external observer, it looked like a panicked species trying desperately to organize a defense. In reality, it was the opening act of the most sophisticated military deception in human history. The hours ticked by with agonizing slowness. In Deep Six, Captain Blackwood and her team made final preparations. Across the solar system, hidden defensive positions powered up their weapons and shield systems. The Terra's Wrath, still cloaked and invisible, moved silently into position, near Jupiter's moons, ready to emerge at the critical moment. Dr. Chen monitored the approaching hyperspace signatures. 30 minutes to arrival, Captain. All systems report ready status." "Then let's give our guests a warm welcome," Captain Blackwood replied, her voice carrying the cold determination that had made her humanity's choice to command this operation. "Signal all units. Operation Silent Guardian is now active. Time to show the galaxy what happens when you mistake human patience for weakness." The stage was set for a confrontation that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The Vorthons expected to find a primitive, defenseless world ripe for conquest. Instead, they were about to encounter humanity's greatest strength, the ability to appear weak while planning victory, to remain silent while preparing to roar, and to turn the enemy's assumptions into their greatest weakness. As the final minutes ticked away before the Vorthon arrival, Captain Blackwood allowed herself a small smile. The galaxy was about to learn why humanity had remained silent for so long. It wasn't because they were weak or afraid. It was because they were listening, learning, and preparing for the day when silence would give way to thunder. The Awakening. Storm the Vorthon invasion fleet materialized at the edge of Earth's solar system in a display of controlled hyperspace emergence that had terrified dozens of worlds. 200 warships appeared simultaneously, their dark hulls bristling with weapons that could crack continents. Admiral Krexthal watched the tactical displays with satisfaction, as his fleet took perfect formation, a testament to Vorthon military precision. "Scan the system," he ordered. "I want complete tactical assessment within minutes." Commander Wilex worked efficiently at his station, coordinating data from dozens of sensor arrays. "Sir, the humans appear to be in complete panic. We're detecting massive communication traffic, evacuation orders, and what looks like their entire defensive fleet scrambling to organize a response." On the main display, Earth's visible defenses looked exactly as pathetic as the intelligence reports had suggested: 30 orbital platforms of obviously primitive design, a handful of atmospheric fighters launching in disorganized groups, and several larger vessels that appeared to be hastily converted civilian ships. The largest human vessel was less than half the size of a Vorthon destroyer. "They're actually trying to fight," one of the bridge officers hissed with amusement. "Look at those formations, it's like watching children play with toys." Admiral Krexthul nodded, but something nagged at his experienced mind. In 47 previous conquests, he had learned to trust his instincts. There was something about the human response that felt wrong, though he couldn't identify exactly what bothered him. Light minutes away, aboard the hidden command center Deep 6, Captain Blackwood was orchestrating the most complex military deception in human history. Every panicked communication, every desperate defensive maneuver, every appearance of chaos was carefully choreographed to feed Vorthon assumptions about human incompetence. "The bait is working perfectly," Dr. Chen reported, monitoring Vorthon communications. "They're interpreting our surface fleet movements exactly as predicted. Admiral Krexthul is positioning his forces for what he expects to be a simple intimidation display, followed by surrender demands." "Excellent. Signal the Terra's wrath to maintain position behind Jupiter's shadow. All hidden defense platforms remain on standby. Let them think they see everything." Captain Blackwood had studied every detail of Vorthon military doctrine. She knew that Admiral Krexthul would follow standard conquest protocol: demonstrate overwhelming superiority, demand surrender, then occupy key positions if the enemy submitted. The Vorthons had never encountered serious resistance because they chose their targets carefully, always attacking civilizations too primitive or divided to mount effective defense. This time would be different. "Sir," Commander Ilix announced, from the Vorthon flagship, "the humans are broadcasting on all frequencies. It appears to be some kind of surrender negotiation request." Admiral Krexthul's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. "Excellent. They're smarter than most. Put it through." The communication that came through was a masterpiece of psychological manipulation. World leaders from Earth's major nations appeared on screen, their faces showing carefully calculated combinations of fear, determination, and desperate hope. They spoke of humanity's desire for peace, their willingness to negotiate, and their hope that the superior Vorthon civilization would show mercy to a primitive species that meant no harm. It was exactly what Admiral Krexthul expected to hear, and exactly what Captain Blackwood wanted him to think. "They're requesting 24 hours to prepare their formal surrender," the Admiral mused. "Typical. They want time to convince their populations to submit peacefully." "Should we grant their request, sir?" Commander Wilex asked. "Why not? It saves us the trouble of orbital bombardment. Deploy the fleet in standard intimidation formation. Let them see our full strength while they consider their options." This was the critical moment Captain Blackwood had been waiting for. As the Vorthon fleet spread out across the solar system in their confident display of power, they positioned themselves exactly where her hidden defensive grid could achieve maximum effect. Every Vorthon ship was now within range of concealed weapons platforms that had been disguised as space debris, asteroids, and derelict satellites for decades. "All units report target acquisition," Dr. Chen announced quietly. "The Vorthons have positioned themselves perfectly. We have overlapping fields of fire on every major vessel." "Not yet," Captain Blackwood replied calmly. "Let them get comfortable. Let them think they've already won." For 18 hours, the Vorthons maintained their positions while humanity appeared to debate surrender terms. Admiral Krexthul received regular updates about human discussions, negotiations between world governments, and what appeared to be serious preparations for formal capitulation. Everything proceeded exactly according to Vorthon expectations. Then, at hour 19, everything changed. The transformation began subtly. The primitive human orbital platforms suddenly began moving with military precision that belied their crude appearance. The converted civilian vessels started powering up weapon systems that hadn't been visible on any Vorthon scan. Most shocking of all, what the Vorthons had dismissed as space debris throughout the system began revealing itself as sophisticated military hardware. "Sir," Commander Wilex's voice carried a note of alarm. "We're detecting massive power signatures throughout the system. The humans have been hiding military assets disguised as civilian infrastructure." But Admiral Krexthol's attention was fixed on something else entirely. Near Jupiter, space itself seemed to ripple and fold, and from that distortion emerged the largest warship he had ever seen. The Terra's Wrath materialized like a mountain of steel and ceramic armor, its hull bristling with weapons that made Vorthon technology look primitive by comparison. "Impossible," the Admiral whispered. "That ship is larger than our entire command squadron. How did they hide something that massive?" The answer came in a calm, professional voice that cut through every Vorthon communication frequency simultaneously. Captain Blackwood's image appeared on screens throughout the invasion fleet, her expression showing the quiet confidence of someone who had been planning this moment for years. "Admiral Krexthul," she said, "I am Captain Zara Blackwood, commanding officer of the Terran Defense Force. You are currently surrounded by the largest defensive grid ever constructed, with every one of your vessels targeted by multiple weapon systems. Your intelligence about human capabilities was incomplete." The tactical displays aboard Vorthon ships lit up like festival decorations as hidden human assets revealed themselves throughout the solar system. Weapons platforms emerged from asteroid camouflage, stealth fighters decloaked in perfect attack formations, and defensive installations that had been invisible minutes before now painted every Vorthon ship with targeting lasers. "This is impossible," Admiral Krexthul snarled. "Our intelligence was perfect. You're a primitive species with chemical rockets and divided governments." Captain Blackwood's smile was cold as starlight. "Admiral, the first rule of warfare is never let your enemy know your true capabilities. We've been monitoring galactic communications for over 50 years. We know about every world you've conquered, every tactic you've used, every psychological profile in your command structure. We know about your expansion plans, your resource requirements, and your military doctrine." The revelation hit the Vorthon bridge crew like a physical blow. They hadn't been conducting secret intelligence gathering on a primitive world. They had been observed, analyzed, and manipulated by a species they had completely underestimated. "You see, Admiral," Captain Blackwood continued, "humanity learned long ago that the best way to survive is to let your enemies underestimate you. While you've been conquering obvious targets, we've been preparing for the day when someone would mistake our patience for weakness." Dr. Chen's voice came through on a private channel to Captain Blackwood. "All systems are locked and loaded. The Terra's Wrath is ready to demonstrate its capabilities. Vorthon fleet movements suggest they're considering retreat." But Admiral Krexthul was a career military officer with too much pride to retreat without testing his enemy. "All ships, battle stations, target the large human vessel and fire at will." What happened next redefined Vorthon understanding of space combat. The Terra's Wrath didn't dodge the incoming fire, it absorbed it. Vorthon energy weapons, capable of melting through kilometers of solid rock, struck the human dreadnought's shields and simply dissipated like rain on glass. The ship's defensive systems were so advanced that the entire Vorthon bombardment had no visible effect. The Terra's Wrath's response was devastating in its precision. Instead of destroying Vorthon vessels outright, it systematically disabled them. Weapon systems were surgically removed by impossibly accurate energy beams. Propulsion systems were crippled by targeted electromagnetic pulses. Communication arrays were destroyed by projectiles that moved too fast for Vorthon sensors to track. Within minutes, Admiral Krexthul's mighty invasion fleet was reduced to helpless, drifting hulks. "Your ships and crews are intact, Admiral." Captain Blackwood's voice came through the communication systems. "That was intentional. We're not conquerors, we're defenders. But let me be very clear about something. Humanity is no longer a secret. The galaxy now knows that Earth is protected by technology and strategic thinking that makes your empire look primitive. The psychological impact was immediate and profound. The Vorthon Empire had built its expansion on the assumption of technological and tactical superiority. In one engagement, humanity had shattered that assumption completely. "What do you want?" Admiral Krexthul asked, his voice carrying the weight of defeat. "We want the galaxy to know that humanity is not prey, Captain," Blackwood replied. "We want every expansionist empire to understand that Earth is not defenseless, and we want you to deliver a message to your superiors. The age of easy conquest is over. There's a new player in galactic politics, and we've been watching, learning, and preparing for a very long time." As Vorthon ships limped away from Earth's solar system, carrying news of their defeat back to the Empire, Captain Blackwood stood in the observation deck of Deep Six, watching the stars. Humanity had revealed itself to the galaxy not as conquerors, but as protectors who had mastered the art of patient preparation. Dr. Chen approached with a satisfied expression. "The Vorthon fleet is withdrawing. Long-range sensors show they're broadcasting our demonstration to their homeworlds. I suspect we'll be receiving some very different types of communications from galactic civilizations in the coming months." "Good," Captain Blackwood replied. "It's time humanity took its place among the stars, not as invaders or victims, but as the species that proved intelligence and preparation can triumph over brute force and arrogance." The galaxy had mistaken humanity's silence for surrender. They had learned, perhaps too late, that sometimes the quietest voices carry the loudest thunder. Earth's children were no longer hidden in the darkness between stars. They had stepped into the light, and the universe would never be the same.